what you have to understand is, what we Sumatrans in Indonesia also have to understand is how the Javanese psyche and psychology works, and the system. You know, the emotional system, the intuitive approaches, and therefore, you know, is a very, very difficult sometimes to understand.
President Suharto had a very traditional Javanese worldview, and Mr. Lee Kuan Yew had a very modern Anglo-Saxon worldview, and they're far apart, and they became good friends. It's a remarkable story, and that, I must say, kept Indonesia-Singapore relations stable for a long time.
I happened to be a young desk officer when Suharto came for President Benjamin Sheares' state funeral. And I was one of those who stood outside Lee Kuan Yew's office to take notes of whoever the visiting statesman would call on him. Yeah? And it was my first time I saw Suharto, and I felt that there was this aura about him. At the same time, he also recognized the aura of Lee Kuan Yew. They took each other seriously. The personality of political leader is very important.
I thought, you know, there are no more two persons that are so different from each other than LKY and Suharto. But they have got the bond and trust of each other, which is really remarkable.
It was not a relationship which immediately blossomed.
They were at loggerheads on the two marines.
What they're talking about is the time from Suharto's effective takeover after the failed coup in 1965 to the first bilateral meeting when Mr. Lee Kuan Yew visited Indonesia in 1973.
Suharto didn't want to see Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew then, you know, for 7.5 years.
It developed and grew in strength over the years. What was important was that right from the first meeting, Mr. Lee put across the notion to President Suharto that Singapore was not a third China, meaning an ancillary of the People's Republic of China or Taiwan, that Singapore saw itself as part of Southeast Asia. And this helped to build trust and confidence on the part of Suharto.
I think Singaporeans got spoiled as a result. They thought that that kind of stability was normal in the relations between Indonesia and Singapore. That was abnormal. So when President Suharto retired, the normal came back, and the normal is you have ups and downs and differences and agreements in relationships. So that's what we are experiencing today.
You've got a new generation, but many of them were not present when Suharto was around. For them, Suharto is the past. They live in the present. And this is a challenge that we would have to face.
Relatively speaking, we're not badly off between Indonesia and Singapore. But I must emphasize that we should not take this for granted, that we have to continue to work very hard to keep this relationship stable and strong.